to my channel. I've been asked to go down to BBC Radio Solent and go live on the radio and talk all things ADHD. So yeah, remember to like and subscribe and you'll be able to hear my radio interview. So yeah, I'll see you in a bit. Bye!
And I'm very excited about the conversation that we're going to be sharing over the coming hour. Let me tell you a little bit about it. So in the studio, I have BBC South reporter Ben Moore, who has ADHD and has been looking into this. It's done a fab documentary. And we're also joined by Molly Brooks-Dridge, who's an influencer from Havant, and Molly has ADHD and is autistic. Now, welcome along, guys. It's lovely to see you. Hello, lovely Ben. Hello, lovely Molly.
Hello.
And are we looking forward to chatting lots? I think this is going to resonate with a lot of people.
You're talking to two people with ADHD, so you could probably just leave that fader up and just go and do a bit of shopping.
We don't need any tunes, do we, for this?
No.
And of course, Molly, you use social media yourself. You're an influencer. You have a fantastic Instagram page. Tell me a little bit about the posts that you put up on an almost daily basis.
So I try to use social media to just build a community of people, because when I was diagnosed in 2019, I couldn't find anything online that I could personally resonate with. I could only really find stuff about males, like naughty boys, and I just thought, but that's not me, I'm not hyperactive. So I just started to document on Facebook, just a little like blog here and there, and it just blew up. And I've done it so that I talk about the taboo subjects, the ones that doctors and certain people won't talk about, because it's kind of like, well, that's not specific to ADHD, but actually ADHD causes these big things in your life that not everyone wants to admit and talk about. So I try to do that for others so that I'm their voice.
And was that easier for you because your social media account, it kind of puts a little bit of distance between you and other people, doesn't it? It's kind of a safe place.
That's it, yeah. So I didn't start off showing my face at all. I just made the infographics. But then so many people said that they found it quite hard to connect because they didn't know who was behind it. So I started to do my YouTube channel, and obviously that's blown up as well. And people are seeming to really connect because I'm a real person, and I think that's what people like, because I don't talk in medical terms. I talk about real, it has affected me massively.
The realities of living with ADHD.
That's it.
Absolutely. We're talking about ADHD, we're talking about autism. And Molly, you're diagnosed with both.
Yeah.
You're autistic and you have ADHD. And let's just talk about the point at which you decided you needed to investigate yourself.
Okay. So in 2018, I was at college and I was, I was like 17, 18, and I was kicked out of college. And at that point, it was something in my mind was telling me, why can't I just act like everybody else? Like, why am I so childish? Like, what's the problem? And then I went and spoke to my mum. She was like, I've always known, Mol. Like, I've always known there's something not quite right, but I wanted to be a policewoman. So my mum and dad were like, we're not going to get anything. We're not going to get you labelled, because going back like 10 years when I was younger, it wasn't well known, especially with girls. So my parents were trying to make sure that I could have the career that I really, really desperately wanted. So yeah, when I was kicked out, I said there's something wrong.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm a former teacher, and I know that for girls in particular, it's often a long time coming, a diagnosis, because you can mask a lot of the behaviours and symptoms. You can follow what other people do. Was that what you were doing at school?
100%. So in secondary school, I was actually excluded and permanently put into a pupil referral unit in the last 2 years of my school life. But now I always say to people, behaviour is a way of communication, and I feel like I was massively failed by the education system, because they weren't communicating with me and my needs. And now I go back, it's so obvious. All the behaviours that I had were it was meltdowns all the time. And it was because I couldn't sit in the class, so I made an excuse to not be in that class, because in my mind, that was the only way I could get out of that situation, was to play up, get kicked out. And in my mind, that was the only solution. And it got to kind of like, it was natural. That's just what happened.
Yeah, and habitual behaviour, a default behaviour.
Yeah, and that was the only way.
So I'm thinking now that your parents, obviously, there wasn't so much awareness now. You're absolutely right. And I think there is a general lack of awareness. And in schools, maybe you didn't have the support that perhaps you might get if you were lucky now, although moot point. So how did the journey to the diagnosis begin once your parents had decided, oh yeah, Mol, we always knew?
Well, so as I was a bit older, I went to the GP and they were like, yep, okay, there's some, yeah, the GP was like, I can see, because I had a whole list, I hyper-focused for about 2 weeks before I went, wrote down everything, and I mean everything. I think Ben filmed it in the documentary. I think you've got a bit of my book. Yeah. I had a notebook that had every single thing in it, and I mean, it's detailed. And I took it and she was like, whoa. She said, okay, yeah. She said, I can see why you want to get some help. And from that, it was it took 3 years, 2.5 years for me to have to pay private, because when I rung up the doctors, because I was at crisis point, I was in a toxic environment at work. I was struggling. I didn't want to be here. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was lost. So my dad actually rung up the crisis kind of point at the doctors, and they said, you've still got maybe 2-year waiting list. So that would have been 4-5 years that I was on that waiting list. So in the end, I mean, I had to borrow money just to pay private. And I mean, it's not cheap, but it was the only way that I could get help. And I mean, yeah. Well,
let's just hold that thought, because that's a pretty frightening stuff, actually. Let's turn our attention now to our other guest, who we haven't introduced yet, which is Dr. Tara Quinn-Cirillo. She's a registered psychologist who specialises in adult autism. Hello, Tara.
Hi, Sam.
Tara, you're listening along to this and you're hearing Molly's story, and it can't be a story that's uncommon in your world.
Oh, absolutely. So hi, Molly. Hi, Ben. Sorry I can't be here with you today. I was just listening to so much there. So I've been doing this job for over 20 years, and this isn't just about the assessment, is it? It's about how people live their lives, safety and risk, and how misunderstood people can be. And exactly as Molly said, how much we don't take time to look at the function of young people's behaviour. And in her case, as you say, that led to a crisis situation.
Ben, let's turn to your story, because I've known you for a long time, but you haven't always had this diagnosis, have you?
No, I've had it about a year now. I'm a 45-year-old bloke, so, I'm sort of very much on that wave of people who are discovering this in their, middle age even, goodness.
We don't call it middle age, we call it executive youth.
Executive youth.
It's anywhere between 40 and dead, darling. Welcome to the club.
But I have a history of it going way back. My parents joke that I spent my education in the corridor. I was sent to a child psychologist in the 80s when I was young, and ended up, I think the story goes, I ended up trying to climb some curtains in their office, and the psychologist ended up counselling my parents. I went on all those fad diets, like E. Do you remember the E numbers? When, like,
oh, yes!
Yeah,
all the blue Smarties were removed.
That's it. I wasn't allowed sugar, I wasn't allowed tomatoes, ketchup, baked beans, all this sort of stuff. So,
not ketchup.
It's really good for you.
So I've sort of been through it, and what happened with me was about a year ago I had a really bad sort of Christmas 2021. Work was very hard. I'd moved to a different part of the BBC, and a lot of things happened in my life that are personal as well, and I had a sort of minor mental health crisis. But my wife, who's just so sort of supportive, just got me to the GP. The GP said, I think you may be ADHD. Went on the waiting list again, like Molly, discovered how long it would be. And just absolute privilege that I have was that I was able to, again, get through private medical insurance, I was able to get a diagnosis. So I'm very, very much aware how privileged I am to have been able to do that. When part of this film that we've made that's airing tonight shows that in some parts it's a 7-year waiting list. Is sort of what we've heard, and we heard from a charity that said this stuff is just so damaging to people. If you, for example, you're doing your GCSEs or A levels, and your doctor's saying, yes, there's something wrong with you, you need help. We'll see you in 3 years. You've done your A levels, and that's your life. That's it, thrown away, isn't it? What, you're going to go back in your 20s and go back to school? No, you're not getting the help you need through these periods of time. Same for university, same for starting a job, same for anything. So we've had a real good look at all this in the film.
And I wonder, did social media play any role for you in maybe forming some connections, finding some people who understood what was going on for you?
Yes, it was. I work at, across broadcasting, so digital video is a big part of that. So obviously I've got TikTok, obviously I've got Instagram, and I could see, that I felt I was being reflected in some of these posts. And of course, the more you look at them, the more they appear. So eventually now my For You page on TikTok is just entirely ADHD and autism. My son is autistic as well. So I was very tuned into neurodiversity.
That's so interesting. Molly, you were nodding along there as you're listening to. Tell me what it was like living daily with ADHD and autism.
So for me personally, it affected my family hugely, and growing up I just had like these mood swings, and I mean they were like a pendulum, like they were swinging constantly, and I didn't know why. So it affected, the relationships I had with my parents, with my younger sister, like I say, teachers, education. It was just, I can't make friends. I don't have any friends now. My best friend's my mum. I don't have any friends.
I'm your friend.
Okay, and you, and Ben.
I'm prepared to be your friend.
Okay, you could be my friend too. So yeah, like it affected so many aspects of my life. But I've got to remember as well, I also have autism. So when it comes to defining what ADHD is, I really struggle because it's this massive conflict. They both, like, my autism wants strict structure and my ADHD just wants, no, I have to be spontaneous, I want to be adventurous, I want that kind of boost of like excitement, otherwise I'm not interested. And I have to, every day is a battle between what I want and realistically what I want, and then what my body needs. I can't work out that middle ground, so it's like a constant battle every single day.
So I'm guessing that younger you was very confused a lot of the time.
So when I was diagnosed, I went through this stage of grief. Honestly, after, it felt great to be diagnosed, but for a few months after, I was convinced it wasn't the right diagnosis, because I couldn't get to grips with, well, the past 21 years, that wasn't me, that wasn't Molly. And I had like this weird identity crisis, because everything that I struggled with, I put down to a fault of my own. It was like, I'm the problem, I need fixing. But when I was told categorically by my doctor, I have a very severe like type of ADHD, the combined type, where it's very severe, and she said, I'm really very surprised I've got to where I was at 21 without hitting that crisis point before then, because it's so bad. And now that I'm medicated, I'm able to see where I've improved and where it helps.
Okay, so your diagnosis brought you some medication, some treatment.
Yeah.
And did you see an instant change, or did that take some time to adapt to?
So honestly, my doctor, she's amazing. And her words to me were, don't expect too much, because pills don't give you the skills. You have to sit back and learn, and you have to have realistic expectations. You don't go, oh, that's it, it's going to fix it, because you can't fix something that's not fixable. You can't cure ADHD, you can't. So when I was diagnosed, there were treatment plans in place, like therapy, but I've been to, like, literally, and I'm not over exaggerating, I've been to them all, and none of them work. I was told by CAMs, by counsellors, no, that's not ADHD, you're just struggling with, behavioural issues. It's just your parents aren't good parents. We were actually told twice by professionals, it's your parents' style of parenting. We were told by two professionals.
I hope your parents weren't in the room when that was said.
Yeah, no, they were. And it was, like I say to you, like I spoke to you off air, like it was damaging for my family. It was really, it had a horrible impact on us. And once I was diagnosed, we've been able to heal a little bit. We've all worked together to come to this idea that I can't help it, and I don't mean what I say when I'm angry. We've had to kind of build those bridges back up, because being undiagnosed for so long broke down all of the communication barriers between me and my parents, and I was getting in trouble, like outside of the home, at school, driving recklessly. I was in a lot of trouble basically, and if I didn't get diagnosed, I don't know if I'd still be alive today, because my driving, my erratic behaviour, what I was doing outside of the home without my parents' knowledge, like going out, staying out super late, being with people that I shouldn't be with. I was in a lot of horrible situations because I felt like I needed to be there because I needed to be social when I didn't want to be, but I was trying to people please because I wanted friends so badly.
Oh, this is absolutely fascinating, and I'm wondering, Ben, if it's ringing any bells with you. I mean, what has it been like? Because you've been even longer without a diagnosis. Do you look back on your younger years and see how you were living with what was actually a complicated neurodiversity?
Definitely, there's a lot of I look back with sort of this. I'm very envious of my wife, who seems to look back on her youth with just great confidence and real peace with who she is, and everything to me is a cringe. And the people pleasing, all this stuff that you just don't want to be doing. I mean, one thing just sitting here listening to Molly talk as well, and possibly me, because I'm a BBC reporter, is that we're coming across quite lucid and we're explaining ourselves really well, but living with ADHD is really horrible. We are masking massively here. I mask every day of my life, especially at work. I have massive problems with my emotions. I have massive problems with manic moods. My memory is absolutely shocking, to the point where I thought I may have another problem, dementia or Alzheimer's. I have to have an elaborate system of notepads and electronic tags on items to stop me losing them. And my focus, is all over the place. And it goes widely between what's called hyperfocus, which means I can get a lot of work done very quickly, and then just not being able to settle at all. And I'm very, very lucky here at BBC South that I have very understanding bosses for it. And we actually had a question from Instagram earlier today, someone asking me, how does your ADHD affect my relationship with my kids? And I'm also very lucky that we haven't hidden anything from my children either, one of whom is autistic. But my youngest little girl, Nancy, if I ever do something, if I get manic or emotional, she just rolls her eyes and said, "Oh, Daddy's HD." So I like to know I'm high definition. I'm working on being forthcoming.
Sure.
Yeah, so Daddy's just HD, and she's sort of, she's really good at sort of managing that, and her brother's autism as well. So it does absolutely permeate every aspect of your life. And this is another problem with social media. There are people on social media going, "Hey, 5 superpowers of ADHD."
Oh, don't even get me started.
It is, you can sort of see how it could be. I'm extremely resilient. I can hyper-focus and get a lot of things done. But it isn't a superpower. And actually, Henry, the chap I interview in the documentary, says this amazing thing. And he said, he's from the charity ADHD UK, and he says, if ADHD is a superpower, there's a lot of kryptonite about. And I thought that was an absolutely perfect way of putting it.
You can understand, I think, because, coming, from the world of education, where you're trying to make children feel included and positive about themselves, because I imagine this has had an impact on your self-esteem over the years, where you're trying to present neurodivergence as something positive for the child who can't do anything about it. So I'm imagining that superpower thing does come from a place of good intent, but it just maybe misses the mark.
I think it's like toxic positivity, though. I think there's a boundary between, when a kid's younger, I totally agree with, making them feel like that that they can reach their goals and they can do, I think that's a thing you have to do with every child. But I think a kid with ADHD who is autistic, I think there has to be a sense of reality as well, because there are going to be boundaries in life that I feel like they need to be able, obviously not, you don't need to scare them or make them feel, but I do think they need to be made a little bit more aware that, yeah, you might have a little bit of a superpower, but there are going to be times when you are going to struggle, but that's okay. If I was a parent, that's kind of how I would want my child to know you're totally capable of overcoming these boundaries, but they're like these obstacles, but you are going to come across quite a few.
Yeah, and it's not going to be easy. My second guest is Ben Moore. He's a BBC reporter with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, diagnosed last year.
ADHD.
I know, but I'm just wanting to say the actual words out loud.
It's too long though, isn't it?
It is too long, but we need to know what they are.
We need a new name for ADHD. That's another thing.
Procrastinators.
The prevaricators.
And there it is. Let's tell all the doctors.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. It's been lovely having you in the studio. I wonder, you've been working on the documentary together. What would you like the outcome of that to be? What do you hope for it? Molly, what about you? What was your experience like making the film with Ben?
I mean, it was amazing, to be honest, because I was quite... When Ben emailed me, I was like, what me? Why do you want me part of your documentary? Because, I mean, it's my life, so I'm the only person, the expert of my life. So I was thinking, I didn't know if I wanted to do it, to be honest, because I was thinking, no, I'm not an actor, but, it's not acting. But anyway, yeah, so when Ben asked me, I was like, oh, great, this could be an opportunity to help others. And I'm not like, I know it sounds, I'm a normal person. I'm not a celebrity. I haven't, I didn't grow up with money. So I'm a realistic, real person who actually did struggle. And if I can help anybody, like, feel less alone, then I guess that's what I want to take from this documentary.
Oh, well, I think it's wonderful. And I'm just looking at your lovely book, Molly's ADHD Guide. Tell me a little bit more about where people can get hold of this, and how can they see you online, and what's your address for the Instagram?
I thought you were going to say my house address then. I was like, so my Instagram is @Molly's_ADHD_mayhem. That's the same on YouTube too. And my book, my first one, Me, Myself and ADHD, that's on Amazon, I believe, and the other book, the little guide, I don't actually know when it's sold. My publishers, it's on the back, the name of my publishers.
Okay, well, I think this says, oh, I can't, the font is so difficult, I can't read it with my ancient eyes. Molly, read that.
Ginger Fire Press.
Ginger Fire Press.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's the publisher, so hit them up.
Molly's ADHD Guide. It's been so lovely having you in the studio this Friday afternoon. Thank you so much for sharing what was a really personal experience. And Ben, we look forward to your doco.
Watch South Today tonight.
South Today, 6:30, BBC One. Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you, Molly. And thank you, Dr. Tara Quinn Cirillo.